So again, as we discussed earlier, that first two octets basically represents the network and next two will basically represent our host. So in this case, this third octet basically be for our subnet. So in this case, what will happen is we will be, and this last octet will basically represent our actual instance. So what we'll be having is we'll be creating 255 subnets with this, and each subnet can have 255 hosts. Okay, so it will be like this. We have created subnet. And one more thing to when you are giving CIDR in your VPC, while creating CIDRs, you should be clear on one thing, that you should not give same CIDRs while creating different VPCs. Let's say if you have 3 VPCs and you give them same CIDRs, then there will be a problem. You should always allocate different CIDRs. Let's say this is your VPC 1, and if you want to create a VPC 2, you can change it like this: 10.1.0.0. You should always give different CIDRs. Why? Because let's say this is your first VPC, this is your second VPC, and this is your third VPC. So if you want, by default there will be no communication between two VPCs that's dedicated to you, that virtual network. So if you want to establish some communication between two VPCs, then you will have to establish peering between them. And you can establish peering between them only when they have different CIDRs. So please keep it in mind whenever you want communication or some data transfer to happen between two VPCs, then you should always allocate different CIDRs to them, because if you'll allocate same CIDRs to them, then you will not be able to establish peering between them. Okay, so coming back, so this is done. We'll create this subnet. Okay, so our CBA subnet is created, and now what we'll do is we'll create route tables. So coming back to this diagram, we have created subnets, we have created our gateway, we have created our VPC. Now will be creating routing tables. So we discussed that we can connect to the outside world or internet using this gateways. So this is the outside network, internet, which way we can communicate with outside network via gateways. So for our instance, so to communicate with outside network, we need some routing tables. So whenever it is basically used, so routing tables are basically used to route the request. So how the request should be routed. So whenever we want to communicate with outside network, then our instance will be using the routing this routing table to connect to this gateway, and again this gateway will help us connect to the internet. So let's create a routing table. Here we'll say create route table. So we'll say CBA underscore, and our CBA VPC will be used. We'll say create. Okay, so this is created. You can select that and go to routes. By default only local is there. We will edit it. Okay, edit it, and we'll say add another rule. We will say router will use all the IPs, and target will be our gateway, and we have created CBA gateway. So we'll select it, we'll say save, and now we will also configure subnet. You can select subnet associations, say edit, you can select this subnet and save. So this is the subnet that we created. Okay, so we are done with everything now. We have created our own VPC, and we have created gateways, routing, we have configured routing tables, how to route the request, and we have our own VPC ready with us. So now we'll create an EC2 instance with our VPC. So go to services, EC2, we'll open it. Let's go to running instances. say launch instances. We'll be choosing Ubuntu only. Next, configure details. Herein you can see network. From here we'll choose our VPC which we created, that is CBA VPC, and you can see automatically our CBA subnet has come here. So as we discussed that we will be having basically 255 subnets, and each subnet will have 255 hosts. So, and between from this 255 around 4 or 5 basically IPs are taken by Amazon, so that's why you can see 251 IP addresses are available, and we will also auto assign an IP. Public IP will be allocated to our instance. We'll say next. So we will not configure any other details. We'll say my EC2. This is okay. We'll not configure these details. Review and launch. Okay, previous will allow SSH from anywhere. Review and launch. Okay. Key pair is there. Acknowledge and launch instance. Okay, view instances. Okay, so by the time it is launching, we'll like to discuss one more thing. If you'll come back to our VPC dashboard, herein you'll see elastic IPs. So if you okay, let's take an example. So whenever we create an EC2 instance, we know that a public IP is allocated to it, and whenever a new instance is created, a new public IP is allocated. So if we want the same public IP whenever we stop or start that instance, we can assign a elastic IP to it. So whenever we'll be using elastic IP, whatever IP will be given to us, that will be static. Elastic IP is basically static IP, so that will persist across all the start and stop of your instances, but there is a cost associated to the elastic IP. So if you'll be using elastic IP and you will not assign it to any of your instances, then you'll be incurring costs. So we'll be discussing a demo on this later on. So now you can see our instance is up and running. Now we'll try to connect it. So I have opened putty. So let's take the public IP. Say open. So we already know what are the steps that we need to do before connecting from putty. If you have not connected through putty to your instance before, I would recommend you to watch the previous videos before doing this. So we have filled the public IP. We can say open, say yes, give the username as Ubuntu. Okay, so now you can see we are able to successfully log in to our EC2 instance. So this is how basically we configure our VPC and we can launch our instances in it. So this was all about this tutorial, and again, if you are not using anything, you can simply terminate or stop your instance. I'll be stopping the instance. Okay, we can close this. So this was a brief overview and a practical session about VPC. I hope you understood everything about this tutorial, and I would recommend you to go through some networking concepts if you are not familiar with subnets or routing tables or gateways for that matter. So if you'll understand them properly, then you'll be having a good idea about this tutorial. So thanks for watching.